What is up, guys? Today we are back with the budget bike build. And no, that is not the budget bike. But we got to talk about that to talk about the budget bike. So let's get into it. Today, cheap suspension. Alright, so we are back with the budget Dyna, and this is the giveaway bike. We're actually going to give this bike away. So yeah, we've been doing a lot of work, and this bike is in different states of, I would say, disrepair. But we got a lot going on. So today we are focusing on the suspension. There's some other things in play, but we're kind of at a standstill with the other things, so suspension is going to happen. But yes, you can win this bike. Wretchedclothing.com. Every $5 you spend will get you entered in a spot to win this marvelous bike. Now, why is it marvelous? Because we are building a $5,000 Dyna. Yes, you heard it. Only $5,000 in purchasing the bike and modifying the bike. Why? Because anybody can throw a bunch of money at a bike like I did. But that's easy. It's just money, and I know money's not easy to come by, but you don't really have to think a lot. You can just throw a bunch of money at it and you're going to come up with a result. But what you can do is scour Marketplace, find a good deal, get it, work on it, wrench in your garage, and try to build a respectable Dyna at a cost that, if you're ready to get rid of it, you can probably get all your money back. You don't have to spend a bunch of money on parts, upgrades, all these different things, and be into a bike that's worth half of what you have into it. So let's get into that. So this is my 08 Dyna lowrider that we put a little bit of money into, and I absolutely love the suspension. It rides so good. We're 2-up in the front, 14s in the rear, legends front and back, 2-up legends in the front with bigger or longer fork tubes, and then of course legends fully adjustable in the rear. Now this setup is going to cost you pretty close to maybe $2,500 when you're all said and done retail, and that's you doing it yourself. So yeah, we don't have that kind of money. We plan on spending about 10% of that. So let's show you what we got. First off, we got a pretty good deal on a set of Drag Specialties 13.5-inch adjustable chromies. We got it with an exhaust. Honestly, with what we pay for the exhaust, the shocks were kind of free, but we're going to value it at $100 because they're not that expensive, and you can get them for around that price if you're able to snag them. All we really have to do, they should be really close adjusted to what we need. We just need to make sure they're both the same left or right, and we can probably throw them on. And then for the front, we're just going to throw in a set of new progressive front springs because what in there is probably completely worn out. We could probably get away with just redoing the fluid, and it would be so much better. We're going to put in new springs, fluid, and we're also going to add one thing I've been wanting to try just to see how things work, kind of give us a little bit of height on the cheap. So the last piece of the puzzle for the front end is going to be these fork tube extensions. We ordered 2-inch extensions, so that would be 2 up in the front and I think 1.5 inches in the rear for over stock. I don't know exactly what we have on it now, but it's pretty low. Now with these, you can push the tube up a little bit in the fork if you need to drop it just a hair bit. That's why I went with 2 inches instead of 1 inch. Just to, if we need to, we're only going 1.5 inches up in the front, so if we want to drop, only raise it about 1 inch in the front, we can do that, or 1.5 inches in the back. If we only want to raise it 1 inch, we can, but we'll go ahead and get with the 2 inches. That way you have a little bit of adjustability. But yeah, new fork oil, springs, these extensions, and then some shocks in the back. We're in roughly about like $250, somewhere around that range, maybe a little less. And is it going to be as nice as my full Legend suspension on the 08 Dyna? Absolutely not. But it's still going to look good for the gram, and it's going to be way better than what we have right now. It's probably going to ride like a night and day. but of course we'll hit the road and see how it really feels. All right, so we got the jack up under the bike, and we're just going to kind of double check here. That is our fender gap, our gap in between the tire, which is none. So all we really need to do is just, once we take the weight off the wheel with the jack and we're able to get these shocks off, then we'll be able to throw the new ones on pretty quickly, and we'll see how much that improves. Nut this little beauty ring thing here. Take the bottom bolt out and then work this dude off right here. That did not sound good. You work the shaft back and forth. All right, now we just have to basically do the same thing on the other side. Just like that, both shocks are off. Very simple, very simple. Only thing I will suggest is clean off threads, put Loctite back on. We will be putting some Loctite back on. And we can move on to putting cool stuff on the bike. Look at that comparison right there. This bike's gonna look so much better with those on there. All right, with the shocks, you have a couple of adjustments. One, you have the actual spring pressure here. That was set from the previous owner, and you basically just want to make sure they're pretty much dialed in the same. That's going to depend on the weight of the person. So what you would do is, once you get someone to sit on this bike, you would measure the sag or your end adjustment from end bolt or middle bolt to middle bolt, and with that you will get your sag, and you'll know exactly how much pressure you need here. Now that's going to change depending on the rider. We're probably going to run whatever's there, and it's going to be fine for what I need. And then also we're going to adjust the height, because they had it right at like 14 inches. I'm pretty sure these shocks are supposed to be at 13.5, but they are adjustable out to 14 inches. So we just kind of got it close to 13.5, and what I did was just use this as a good bracket to just kind of let the shock hang, and it was easier to twist back and forth. But now we're ready to put these shocks on and see what type of adjustment or fender gap we're gonna have. So the bike is still sitting where I took the old shocks off, and look, we are nowhere near where we need to be to get those to line up. So we're about to lift this thing to the moon. All right, just in case you've never done this before, you basically just jack the jack up. I did have to switch out my jacks. I keep forgetting that one is too wide for the back. So we're going to switch out to this one. But you basically just want to keep jacking it up little by little until you can get that bolt in there pretty easy. That's why it's kind of easier to do whatever side you got going on with the jack. But let's reveal the fender gap, because boys, this is very nice. Look at that. It is glorious. If you're not into this style, then you may not like it, but having this fender gap shows me a couple things. One, we have some height, and two, we have more shock movement, which is going to be so much nicer for bumps and then in the twisties and all those different things. This bike is definitely going to ride better. So let's button everything down and swap over and get the other side finished, and we'll show you what she looks like. All right, got both rear shocks on. We threw the seat on for effect, and we went ahead and took the pressure off the jack. So the bike is sitting on its own weight, because that's kind of important to see how everything looks. But still, we got a really nice fender gap there. That's probably going to seal up once you put your body weight on it. So there really won't be any gap, but it'll be looking good. And we have so much more suspension travel now that it's going to be nicer. So this bike is 100% coming together. You know it's coming together because I'm like, man, I kind of want to keep it. This would be a perfect little ripper, especially around town or whatever. We're going to throw our bags on near the end, and this thing would be nice just to rip around and do whatever. But it's gonna be given away. I'm gonna give it away. I'm not gonna keep it. One of you possibly, like I said, wretchedclothing.com, pick you up a hat, pick you up a t-shirt. If you already got a bike, you can pick up a set of our saddlebags. That'll give you a lot of entries. We got bar bags. That'll give you some entries. Or even a pair of gloves, because every single one of our gloves have magnets in them. Look at that. So that'll be cool. Like I said, pick something up, wretchedclothing.com. Every $5 you get or spend will get you entered into the bike. We did apply Loctite to every bolt. We're going to, of course, we're not riding it right now, so it really doesn't matter. We're going to throw the other jack up under this bike and start working on the front end, possibly. All right, so we're actually not going to work on the front end right now. Your boy's got to cut grass. So he's got to do some housework. And if I start working on the front end, that just isn't going to happen. So we're going to be done for the day, but not for the video, because by the end of this video, we are going to have this thing sitting on the ground and looking at her full suspension and see how it is. We're not going to be able to ride it quite yet because there's things happening, but subscribe. We have basically a lot of things in motion. This bike is kind of in the middle of 3 videos. We are taking this bike to my buddy who paints and details. I want him to do a full detail of it, but because the motor's blonde and it's a little dirty, I'm actually going to take it to him without the exhaust. We're going to plug the exhaust ports, and he's just going to do a really good job hand detailing. It's not going to be perfect. The bike's definitely been loved. It's got like 35,000 miles. The paint's not perfect, but he's going to do a better job than me, and I want it to look its best as it can with a budget build, you know, just for whoever gets it. So I feel like the vision is there, and I've already like kind of mocked up the exhaust. This thing's going to be killer, and I can't even remember if I did kind of tell you guys in one video that little icing on the cake. So you're gonna have to watch that one because I can't remember which one it was. But there is an icing on the cake at the very end, because we did elect not to do handlebars for this build, because the handlebar setup's really not bad, and that's really depending on the seat and rider height combo. So we spent a little bit of money, and we're gonna do a custom seat on your boy's bike here. But it's not gonna be my bike for long, so one of y'all are gonna win it. But let me go cut some grass, let me go do some husband duties, and on another day, we're gonna hop right back into this, but you will see that right now. All right, guys, it has been a couple days, but we are back in the garage working on the old giveaway bike. So where we left off, rear shocks already ready to go. We need to pull apart the front suspension and get that going. So what we're gonna do, we've already got both jacks up under there, got this freed up. We're gonna take the wheel off, fender off, get these tubes out, and replace the shocks, or the springs that are in there. All right, front fender and wheel is off. We also took the liberty of taking the reflectors off. They're still kind of dirty, but that should get cleaned up during the detail process. But now we just need to swap out everything we need to in the forks. All right, you've always been working. We already did one side because I wanted to be a little bit more comfortable before we turn the camera on. But let's show you what we got. Look a little funky right there. Yeah, we got a longer one on this side, stock on this side. We basically have this connector right here, and we can put it up in the fork tube or in the clamp just a little bit if we want to move our height around. I put it up in there just a hair, so it's not a full 2-inch, and I didn't want it like flush. Kind of wanted just to make sure had a full grip on that. We'll make sure we do that on the other side. A little bit difficult, but not too bad. So we are going to get you mounted up, and we are going to do the other side. your boy struggled pretty hard putting that front wheel back on. Honestly, I need to change the wheel chock out on this thing. It's not really meant to be working on the front end in that wheel chock. Definitely not. It's mainly just made there for like trailers and stuff. I need to get a nicer, better wheel chock, one that just kind of like clamps. The one that came with it was terrible, and this was better, but not the right thing. So we got everything together. I'm not going to put the fender on. I'm going to just get this thing down. I would need to put the caliper on and then see what we can do with it. Well, we already encountered our first problem. That brake line is too tight. Now, while this suspension is fully extended, that's just not going to work. So we're going to have to push the fork tubes up a little bit into the clamps. All right, so what we ended up doing was just getting everything down, loosened up the front end, and then just lowered the jack, and we pushed the tubes up just enough. That's probably more than it really needs, but we got a 1/2 inch out of here, so we're lifted up maybe about 1.5 inches. If it were me going forward, 1 inchers, that's what I would do. I would only do 1 inch, and then you can probably get that flush look and get a little bit of rise. But you know, that's what we picked, that's what we went with. If I were to do it again on a stock bike, I'd go 1 inch, and that'd probably help you out. But let's kind of clean this up, and let's get this bike down on the ground. All right, I'm looking at the bike right in front of me, and this thing is starting to look killer. I wish we could ride it right now. Like that's what I want to do. I want to ride it right now, but that's not going to happen. But let me show you what this thing looks like. This unit right here is starting to look killer with the suspension. Oh man, I think the stance and everything is money. I think the only thing I would do differently for like having the great recipe for this is doing 1 inch extensions here instead of the 2s, and we would lose like a 1/2 inch to the front because we're sitting probably about 1.5 inches rise, maybe just a tad under, but just run those 1 inchers, call it a day. I think it'd look a little bit better. But man, this thing is hot on the block, guys. Oh my God. So the suspension feels pretty good from what I can tell over what we had before. We did have to cut some spacers and get them in the top of the fork tubes. We did that, got everything put together. Everything's looking pretty good. Can't ride it. That's the only unfortunate part. Because what we're going to do now, you may have seen the towels kind of covering the exhaust ports. We're going to take this to a buddy of mine, and he's going to hand detail everything. And I kind of did that on purpose with how the bike sits right now. So the exhaust covers up a lot of the engine part, and that stuff being gray and it not being stained too bad, I really want to get in there and clean that up because those are just never clean. So I wanted to keep the exhaust off to make that a little bit easier, get this completely hand detailed, and then pretty much all we need to do is put the exhaust on, ride it, check everything out. And what we did do is we kept, obviously we have everything stock that we can go back in there. If we're not in love with the suspension, what we can do is we can put in the stock springs. I don't know if they're stock. That fluid looked pretty red to me. I don't know if that was stock fluid. It probably wasn't. It did seem a little low. This bike's old, who knows? I don't know how old that fluid was or how old those springs were, but we can put the stock springs with the stock caps back in if we want to, and we can just put fresh fluid. So it'll still be better. We're running a heavier fluid and fresh fluid. The bike, the front end would still have a better suspension just by doing that. But I think this is a really good cheat code for like not a lot of money. You got, you know, some used shocks in the back, 13.5s. I think you can get them for like $250 new, $300, somewhere in that range. Then up front, you're looking at, you know, less than $200 for this whole setup. Again, I would go with a 1 inch adapter just a regular progressive spring, new fluid, and of course, even with these spacers in there, you could run a super tight, an aggressive spacer and kind of chop it down if you want to. You can ride it, pop that spacer out, and chop it down and get a little bit less preload. It really depends on how you ride, and a lot of that's going to depend on the rider itself, with how aggressive they are, and of course their weight. So it really doesn't cost a lot of money to get this thing dialed in. Now, of course, we're not able to ride it. We're not able to really test it. I've ridden similar setups of these, and I know, like, is it absolutely perfect? No. Usually it's a little bit firm. It's a little harsh than what a lot of people are wanting for all the time. But bike like this, it's probably going to be thrashed. It's definitely a bike that people aren't like touring on. So being a little hard, being a little stiff, you know, that's okay. That's definitely fine, and this bike's going to soak all that up. So given where this bike has came from, I know this is really just a suspension video, but I kind of I took a little sneak peek and just threw the exhaust up there, and this thing is looking killer. I cannot wait to get this thing finished. That being said, hit up wretchedclothing.com, spend $5 on something, or however much you spend. For every $5, you will get entered, or get entered in a chance to win this bike. Again, we're not thinking we're going to make much money, but honestly, I just really enjoy doing this. And if I can break even, send this down the road, I get to do it again, and the wife can't complain because we made our money back. Honestly, I could probably sell this for what we have into it, maybe a little more once we're done, but you know, what's the fun in that? We rather sling a little bit of merch, and calling somebody up and saying, hey, they won this because they bought a t-shirt, that would be super cool. We don't want to do tickets because I want you to have something regardless of you winning a bike. I don't want you to buy a ticket in hopes of winning a bike. I want you to get a dope t-shirt and be happy you got the t-shirt, and if you won something, cool. And again, we're trying this. If this is something that everyone just absolutely hates, well, then we won't do it again. I thought it could be fun, and I enjoy working on bikes and being able to do different things. And if I can build bikes a certain way and have some really cool ideas and put something out there and somebody wins it, awesome. Like I said, this isn't really a way to line pockets. This is more of a way just to be able to have fun. This bike's definitely coming together. Comment down below what you think of this suspension style. I think it's going to be killer. Like I said, I've already sat on it, kind of bounced on it, kind of get the feel of how it feels. I think it's going to be okay. It might be a little stiff, but again, it kind of really depends on the end user. The bars aren't quite perfect, but they're really not bad. Like I said, we're going to forego the bar setup to spend money elsewhere. But yeah, if you like this video, hit that like button. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. And as always, keep it wretched.